If you are considering buying a new laser device, then you're going to want to watch this video. I'm here with Don Berryhill, owner of Lasercoach.com, and he helps medical aesthetic practices across the country to know what's best for their business, if they should buy used, if they should buy new, how to get the best deals on maintenance and service and financing. So if you guys are in the market or considering getting a new device for your practice, then you're gonna wanna talk to this guy, Don Berryhill. He's been in the medical aesthetic device industry for over 25 years. Hi, Don, how's it going?
Hi, Caitlin. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, thank you. Well, I don't want to waste any time. I want to dive right in. I am so excited to talk to you. So just real quick, I want to let people that are watching know the good stuff that we're going to be covering today. So first off, we're going to be covering how to get the best deals when buying a new or a used laser. We're going to be talking about if you should buy used or new, and what's the best way to go for your practice, and then how to get the best deals for service, maintenance, and even financing for your device, right?
You bet.
You're gonna give us the good stuff, right, Don?
Yeah, lots of good nuggets. Good. Absolutely.
Well, I'm so excited because I can't tell you how many times that I've talked to medical aesthetic practice and it's too late. They have bought the wrong device. They bought a used device and then aren't able to get the consumables. Or they have the device and they're not able to market it because they don't have the licensing right. Like just all the uglies that you can imagine, right? That you have seen over your 25 years in the industry. I have seen it well. So let's dive right in. Tell me, what is the top 3 things that that you should do? Let's first start with buying new. What are the top 3 things that you should do to make sure that you're getting the best deal on your new laser device?
Okay, you bet. First thing that came to mind though when you were talking about that is a common thread that I've seen with doctors and med spa owners and nurses and office managers, whoever that buys this equipment, is they don't know what they don't know. There's just so much more to this. It's kind of like a iceberg. There's so much more below it that to be a better educated consumer, you really need to understand a lot of what happens in this industry. Because just like you said, a lot of people buy equipment that's not really the best fit for them. They pay way too much money for it. They don't know how to market it. They don't have the right office staff. They don't have the right parts, to make this happen. So in terms of getting the best deal on a laser, whether it's new or used, the first thing is do your homework and understand what's the right technology for you. And there's a number of things to consider, such as your client or patient population. What's their skin types? Where you live, what kind of treatments are they going to be more inclined to want? Who's going to be doing the treatments? Is it a tech, an esthetician? Sometimes the doctors do it, if they're really focused on this. Is your desire to buy a device clinical or financial, or both? Because sometimes it's, somebody needs a device to treat port wine stains or whatever, and it's strictly clinical. But mostly if it's med spa related or aesthetic, it's to make a profit. So what's going to help you make the most income?
Let's break the financial part down a little bit, because I feel like practice owners skip over this and really don't get into the weeds, and they really should, right? So it's when you say financials, break that down of all the things that they should be looking at.
The first thing that pops to mind is really the cost of the device, because the price range on these things can go from tens of thousands of dollars to $200,000, $300,000, depending on what it is. So I think they need to make sure it's within their budget range, and they need to kind of decide what their budget's going to be. And they may need to get financed up front so they know for sure, because there's been a number of times I've talked to someone that wants to buy this equipment, and they say, I want this device, and it costs $100,000 or $150,000 or whatever. And then they go through all the motions and they do all the stuff, and then they go to get their financing and they find out they get approved for $75,000 or $50,000. And now it's a whole new ballgame. Now you're back to square one. So I think it's important to figure out your financing, your monthly payments, whatever it is up front, so you know what you can afford, and you're going to shop in that price range. So I think that's a key. What's included with the device? Are there any extras you're going to have to buy? How much you're going to have to pay your staff to do it? Some insurance issues. Sometimes, a lot of times, you're covered with this. But I think the first thing that comes to mind is just figuring out your budget, and getting pre-approved, and that puts you in a stronger negotiating position when you go to buy, because you've got the money, you're ready to go, and if you can tell them that, it makes a big difference to put you in the driver's seat.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought you said another interesting point when you're breaking down the financials. So like, how much is your lease payment going to be? How many treatments do you have to do to how long it's going to take you to pay off that device so you're actually profitable? What's the consumable going to be? Because it's hard to know, like, what the marketing cost is going to be, the consumable, the staff, and what you pay them to do the treatment. All of those pennies and dollars add up, and it's absolutely crucial to have that information before purchasing such a big investment.
Absolutely. And the companies make the ROIs look fantastic, obviously. So if you buy this device and your payments are $2,500 a month, and if you only see 2 patients a week, you're going to make $10,000, a month or whatever. So the ROIs look awesome. So you have to really be careful about getting carried away with that, because there's so many other factors like you talked about. And one of the key points when buying a new laser is knowing how to market it, and that's what you do so well. And that's what so many offices don't really understand, how to promote these new devices in such a way where they maximize their return on investment. So most offices need the help. They really do.
You hit on one of my pet peeves, which is when these laser device reps go in there and they just sell them the blue sky, right? They're like, you're gonna, if you buy this device, and it's a high ticket treatment always, right? They have no business even looking at something like, CO2 or Ulthera when they don't even have a patient database or a clientele to market it to, because you and I both know 99% of the time a woman doesn't go straight to CO2, right? So if you are a new practice and you don't have a base of clients, you should not invest in a high ticket service right out of the gate. What are some of those treatments that you feel like practices that are getting going, newer, don't have a big database to pull from? What are some core devices that they should have in their business, or
That's a real key to it. Yeah, that's a real key to it. So if you already have a lot of patients in your database or a lot of clients, it's much easier to fold in to bring in new technology, because then you just advertise to them, you put it out to them in your social media, and a lot of times you don't have to advertise outside of your own practice. Just go within internal marketing and focus on how they talk to patients and get those new patients in. But if you're starting new, which a lot of I see people get into this business as a business opportunity, and some doctors are just adding this as a service and see what happens. But say they're an ER doc and they want to start a med spa, but they have no patients for this, it's going to be really difficult, like you said, to start out with a really high ticket specialized item. So you've got to figure out how to bring those. The trick is getting people through your front door. And then once they come in and they experience you and your staff and they feel good and they feel warm and they feel excited about it and they get some kind of treatment, they'll probably move to the next level. So My feeling is that if somebody comes to you about a new technology or a new treatment or a new service, they're this excited. But your job is to get them this excited. And then they're going to do that, and they're going to probably want to do other treatments, like you said. And there's a saying that Walt Disney said that I really like. That's, if you do what you do so well, if people come back to do it again and bring somebody with them, you're going to be successful. And that's kind of the key with this. So if you get them excited, you know, and all that. But yeah, so treatments would be some kind of more basic skincare treatments. I like, you know, like a hydrofacial type treatment or something like that, where it's a skincare starter treatment. It's not super expensive. Your esthetician can be talking to them about their skin needs, and they may say, well, what about these pigmented lesions, and what about these veins, and what about the fat on my arm, or whatever. Oh, okay, well, let's talk about that after we get through these treatments, and then start building it.
Hydrofacial, diamond glow, oxygeneo type treatments. What about, would you consider IPL, microneedling, laser hair, and those kind of basic?
Yeah, I think meat and potatoes are going to be neck up, you know, so IPL, pulse light, and there's a big difference between different pulse light systems and efficacy and safety and all that. Hair removal possibly, but hair removal is becoming more of a commodity treatment where prices are becoming very competitive, but you have to have it, you know, if you're going to be in this, because you don't want to lose a patient to somebody else because you're not offering hair removal. So you probably don't want to spend $125,000 on a hair removal laser, you know. So, but you want to be able to offering that. You want to do facial rejuvenation, whatever it is, and then kind of see where you grow from there. So for a lot of practices, starting out, if they don't have a lot of space and they're not really sure how this is going to go, maybe a platform system is a good idea. So these platform systems are designed to be upgraded. So maybe you start out with pulse light and hair removal, and then you can add, you know, a Q switch for doing tattoo or pigmented lesions, or a long pulse YAG, or other ones, and you expand it and you kind of see where your growth is, and then you move to buying a dedicated system.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so if I'm in the market to buy a new device, one of the great services that you offer, in essence, is you can help med spa owners negotiate the best deal from them. And when you were telling me about the little tiny amount that you are actually charging, I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, hands down, you would want to talk to Don and have him help you negotiate your new laser device, because he's been in the game so long. He knows all the tricks in the trade, all the things that you want to make sure that's in your contract, all the little things that you can negotiate with to just give you that much better of a deal. And it literally can save so much heartache, pain, time, marketing dollars, and hard dollars, financing, and like the bottom line on what you pay. So what does that look like and sound like if someone wanted to get help buying a new laser device from you?
Yeah, and those are all really good points you made, because sometimes they can save tens of thousands of dollars on these devices if they know how the game is played. And I understand how these manufacturers work, how they do their contracts. So you really need to understand what you're looking at and how to deal with these folks. Depending on the company, they can put a lot of pressure on the buyer to buy quickly, because these bigger name companies are under a lot of pressure to sell a lot of devices, and they have stockholders, a lot of them, and all that. So the reps, and I've been there, they get a lot of pressure from management to sell, and so the message is often like, hey, we got one of these systems left. It's the best price you're ever going to get. You got to sign up before the end of the week, or today or tomorrow. Get it approved by my manager, or it's the end of the month special, and it's not good. You know what? If they offer it to you at that point, they're going to offer it to you next month. It's going to be available next month and the month after. And if they'll find another demo system if they have to, or whatever. So don't be pressured would be my first bit of advice. Step back. You're in the driver's seat, especially if you're, if you've got your financing in line, you know exactly what you can spend, and tell them that. Hey, I've got the funds. I'm ready to go. But here's some things we need to figure out, and I need to find out about what's really in the warranty. You know, what am I going to have to pay if there's any upgrades that come out in the future? What's involved in the training? How many days? How many hours? You know, what kind of support am I going to get? What kind of marketing support am I going to get? And then typically with the big manufacturers, they put a lot of margin into these devices. So they're prepared to come down on the pricing. And then you need to know, and that's where I can help out, is how to play that game to know you're getting the best deal. I can help them really get to the point where you know you've bottomed out. You've got it. Now, some of the other manufacturers, I'm seeing more others entering the market, they don't build these giant margins in. So some companies can play that game and have big margins and other ones don't, but you can still find out, and I can help out with that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it just makes me think about, I mean, there's some people, I guess, that will buy a home without a realtor. But again, like, why wouldn't you want to work with an expert that has been in the game for 25 plus years, you know, and negotiate on your behalf? Because at the end of the day, it really could save you a lot of time, money, and heartache. Because most people, it seems like, you know, like lasers kind of have a shelf life. New technologies are emerging all the time. So another thing that you could help them with is negotiating their contract. So one day they can sell their device and it actually, you know, people are going to want it. So what would that look like?
Yeah, there's real keys to making your device more saleable when it comes to that, and you need to negotiate that up front. Yeah, certain devices are better to buy new, and certain devices are better to buy used, for one, and so you need to understand that. If you are buying new, a lot of times I can look at a contract and see where you can negotiate and where they have room to be more flexible, and maybe you can get a better warranty, or you can get a better pricing here, or you can get better payments, or whatever it is. If you buy new, you'll pay a premium, obviously, but hopefully you're getting the latest, greatest technology, but sometimes you're not, because the laser companies are notorious for every year just kind of changing the shell and the interface on these machines to make it look like it's a brand new, totally different system, when in fact it's the same thing as the 2020, 2019, 2018.
What?
Yeah. So the key is the energy to tissue the same? And that's often the case. You could buy a 2016 device or 2021, but if you dial up the right settings, the energy to tissue is the same. So is it worth spending another $50,000, $75,000, whatever it is, to have a new shell, a new interface, if you know what you're doing?
Oh my gosh, that's slimy.
Yeah, and this is something I know from working with a lot of the service guys. They will tell me, you know, hey, I take the shell off of this one. The internal parts are no different than the old ones. So if you maintain an old one and you know what you're doing, you may be better off just keeping that.
Okay.
You
So
know?
if I was to come to you and I said, okay, you know, I want an IPL device, but should I buy used or should I buy brand new? How would you help me work through that? What are some of the things that I should be considering?
Yeah, I think the main thing is to understand what devices are better to buy used. And IPLs are a pretty good one to buy used, or hair removal lasers are probably the prime example. And the reason is they've been out for a long time. There's been a bunch of them sold. There's a bunch of them on the market. They don't require disposables, typically, maybe some cryogen spray, which is easy enough. And they can be serviced by third-party techs, and that's really key when buying used. So typically with some of these hair removal devices, the techs that used to work for the manufacturers are now working independently, and they know how to work on them. They know how to get parts. You don't have to go back to the manufacturer once you buy that machine. And the same thing with IPLs. You just need to make sure that it's a good quality. You can get the hand pieces relamped by third-party techs. You can get the parts, you can get the service. And anymore, With most of them you can. Some of the newer ones, the companies work really hard to keep third-party techs out of them. So you have to go back to the manufacturer. And they'll put rotating locking codes. They'll change the interface where it's a proprietary interface that unless you have the codes, you can't get into it. So you really have to know what the right devices are to buy. The trickiest part when buying used, you have to, and there's a couple of things to consider, is I would be very cautious about buying any used device that requires the use of per treatment disposables. Because if it's a tip that you have to use for that treatment, they are chipped to that device. And so you have to use their specific tip. You can't just get one somewhere else. It's not going to work. So you have to be real careful about that. And also, you have to watch out for the recertification fees. So if you buy a device that you have to go back to the manufacturer because you got to get their tips or you got to get it serviced and a third-party tech can't service it, they're going to go, well, great, thanks a lot. For $20,000 or $30,000 or $25,000 or $50,000, whatever it is, we're going to recertify your device so that you will be in our system as the new owner and you will have the privilege of buying parts from us and getting service from us and to buy another warranty from us. So you have to be prepared. And so where that gets to be an issue is, say you buy a used device for $30,000 and you end up having to pay a recertification fee of $20,000, you're at $50,000, and maybe you could have bought a new one for $60,000. So was it worth it?
Yeah.
But if you can avoid the recert fees, or there's another way to look at it too. Some devices are so pricey, and so marketing dependent and brand name dependent that it might be worth it. So if you've got a device that sells for $150,000 and they have a $30,000 recertification fee, and you buy one, you find a deal for like $40,000, and it might be worth paying the $30,000. Now you're at $70,000, you've saved over half of a new one, but now you've got the marketing support, you're listed as a customer, you can get service, you can get parts. So, sometimes it's okay if there's a big enough price difference.
Yeah, we had a horror story where we were doing some marketing for one of our clients for Forever Young BBL, and we were killing it. Oh my gosh, we were sending them so many new patients. And then all of a sudden, my client reaches out and says, we got to stop that. I'm not allowed to say Forever Young BBL, it's licensed, and I bought mine used. And I don't have the licensing right to do it. Oh, and it was such a dagger too. So is that something that you can negotiate, like to take out, like if I bought a brand new device, do you see many device companies, like, is that a negotiating point of like, hey, I want you to take off the recertification fee, so in the future, if I want to sell it, the buyer doesn't have to pay the recertification fee? Do you see companies waiving that?
Yeah, because the big shock for a lot of laser owners and owners of devices like this is how much they depreciate, how quickly, because this is a super dynamic industry and there's always other technology coming out. So I can't tell you how many times I've talked to somebody who said, I bought this device for $100,000 and I decided to upgrade to whatever, and I want to sell it in the used market. It all depends on demand. So if the demand has moved on to the next thing, your device may be worth $20,000, after you, and they can't believe it. They're like, I can't believe it. And it's like, I wish I wasn't giving you this news, but that's the reality. So you need to understand that that's a possibility if the technology keeps moving. And again, it all depends on demand. So if a lot of people are asking for that specific device, you're in a good position. But if there's a lot of similar devices, the used buyers are looking for the cheapest, best deal out there. So, and then a lot of times the new companies will negotiate a better deal to try to make that gap not as wide between new and used to make you want to buy a new one. But yeah, so sometimes, and that's a tricky negotiating point with these companies, because they really try to toe the line on these recertification fees because they try to kill the used market. They're really bad about this, and they try to make it as hard as possible to sell your device on the used market. And if you're in a good position you're ready to buy, you got the money, and you know how to negotiate with them, there's a chance that you could get them to alter that recertification issue should you ever want to sell it, and it will make your device 10 times easier to sell in the used market.
Yeah, that $20,000 recertification fee could go in your pocket instead of the device company. That's awesome. Okay, so a big, another blunder that I had with a client, we were killing it with the ClearLift device, or a campaign that we were doing, and again, I got a call from a client that said, my device is down. I'm not going to be able to get the new part for over a month. And I was like, oh my gosh, can they bring in a new device, you know, a demo device while you're waiting? Like how, tell me about like, what can you do in your maintenance contract to try to prevent you from basically, in essence, shutting down a revenue source or one of your rooms making money for you if something was to happen, because eventually, right, you're going to need maintenance. You're going to need a new tip, or you know, your handpiece is not working. So what can you do to protect yourself?
There's a nice trend that's going on in the industry where the technology is becoming more efficient and smaller and lighter and all that, typically. And so a lot of companies are doing what they call depot service, where they can overnight hand pieces or parts or their components or whatever, and they can get you up to speed pretty quickly, and then they'll walk you through a Zoom, you know, or a live phone video to show you what to do, and then you're not down very often. So that's a consideration. You know, if you buy a big bulky laser, for example, like a pulse dye laser, that a dermatologists love those for doing port wine stains and deep vascular lesions and all that. They're big, heavy, bulky machines, and so you can't do depot service with those. So the reality with laser service techs is there's not one in every city. So say you live in, you know, a relatively remote area, and your laser goes down, and you've got 10 people lined up in the next couple of days or whatever, and it requires a tech. So your tech may be in another city for the next 2 days, and they've got to find somebody to get there. And so they finally show up 2 days later. They check out your machine, and they go, well, it needs a power supply or a new laser cavity or a new whatever. I don't have one. I'm going to have to order one. Oh, we're on back order. It's going to take a little while to get. So you got to be prepared, and that's a good discussion to have with the manufacturer right before you buy it. How are you going to support me if this thing goes down? How quickly? I need to get that in writing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you, I've seen a lot of stalled business activity because they don't have that in check right out of the gate. Awesome.
Some of these are, you know, pretty reliable, and you're not going to have a lot of issues if you keep them maintained, but you always can, and it just depends on the device, and it can go kaput, and you know, you've got to get up to speed pretty quick, and that can be an issue with the platform devices. If you put all your eggs in that basket and you've got 5 different technologies in one system, if that goes down, everything's gone down. So it's a great way to start if that's how you need to start, your budget and your space, and you know, kind of get a feel for it. But typically they will grow into, okay, there's my dedicated hair removal laser and my dedicated hair removal room. There's my body contouring devices. You know, a lot of them have 2 or 3 of those. That's in that room. They grow into these, or tattoo removal or whatever it is. And then you need to decide, if you buy new, are you going to buy the extended warranties when your warranty comes up? I'm seeing more and more offices that have multiple lasers, and they're like, I'm spending more on annual warranties than I'm making on these things almost. So for a lot of offices, depending on the laser, you don't really have to buy the extended warranties. And so I see a lot more of those, especially that have multiple devices. They don't buy the extended warranties because they're so pricey, and they get them if you know you can get it repaired efficiently by a third party, or the company will do it and not charge you crazy amounts of money. Then to pay for shop charges and parts as needed may be a much better way to go.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's talk about financing and where are the best sources to look for financing.
Yeah, I would say over the years that I've worked with people who buy this equipment, I'd say 50% of the time, roughly 50%, they finance it through their bank or whatever, their own financing sources, and then about 50% through a lease purchase company. Often be confusing how this works, because if I present to somebody, hey, here's a company that does financing and they can offer you a lease purchase, they'll go, oh, great, I'll buy this. And it's kind of like leasing a car, you know, if after 6 months I don't want it anymore, I can return it. And no, that's not the case. You buy it through the lease company and you set up your terms, if it's 36 months or 48 or 70, whatever it is. But you're obligated for that lease. The good thing about going through these companies, I've worked with several over the years, and they're all fairly similar in their rates because they're competitive, but some have more flexibility, and they can give you like deferred payments and gradually increasing payments and work with you on that. They understand the technology, so if you tell them, I'm looking to buy this specific laser, they may go, oh yeah, we financed plenty of those. I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, what's your price? Boom, boom, boom. One-page application. If the credit's good, they get it done. And what I usually recommend to people is go ahead and get the longer-term lease to keep your payments down, and then if you're really rocking with it, pay it off after your first year.
Yeah.
You know, and it used to be in the early days they would nail people with high cancellation fees, but now it's not so bad. It's usually a few $100 and paperwork and all that kind of stuff. So that's something you want to look at in your contract when you do finance them. Okay, what happens? What am I going to be hit with if I decide to pay this off after a year? It doesn't matter to the company whether you do it through a lease purchase or you pay cash, because they get funded the same. So you don't really have an advantage by doing that. The advantage for you may be a tax break and how your payments are structured versus a bank or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you can negotiate with these lease companies, you know, $1 buyout, 10% buyout, whatever it is, deferred payments, whatever, and then, you know, compare the interest rates. And it's best to talk, and I have a couple of really good finance people if people want recommendations. And I recommend talking to them about all those details, because I don't completely understand how it works, and they can go through, okay, let's compare this to if you go through your bank, and here's your payments, and you may be better off going through a lease purchase, or you may be better off, you know, financing through the bank or paying cash or whatever it is. So.
Yeah, I feel like most of my clients, what I hear from them is that, you know, they're leasing and buying so many different devices that they are getting credit from their bank, and then they're going through private lenders as well to make sure that they have, you know, a variety of devices to offer their patients. And that's okay, right? You can use both sources.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of times with the lease purchases, it's a secondary form of capital that doesn't affect your main credit. And again, the finance person can tell you about that. And you might be able to roll in other costs like build out costs or your marketing costs or whatever into that lease. But that's something you got to talk to them about.
Yeah. So kind of wrap things up here. Some really big nuggets that I took away from our conversation today is that you want to make sure that you have your financials in check, right? So know what you can get financed for, and then break down the financials of, you know, consumables and what you got to pay your staff and what the market is doing, charging cost per treatment, to figure out how many of these treatments you're going to have to do before you're really making money, right? Those are kind of the first two important steps.
Yeah, and are you really prepared to launch this how it needs to be done? And some are way better than others at this. And I think one of the key things too is to have a superstar or a champion in your office that's trained, that can promote these services, that can talk about them, that can get people excited, because the aesthetic treatments are a want to, not a have to, a choose to, not a need to. It's based on emotion. So you've got to have stuff that knows how to get people from this excited to this excited, promote it, get them, not hard selling patients or clients, but getting them excited. So maybe, you know, where I see the offices making the most revenue with this, maybe a patient comes in for this one treatment, but if your superstar champion is so good, they may walk out of there after the consultation with a package this big of 3 different treatments because you put together a combination package of your different things that's a better value for them, and you make more money.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on marketing several times during our conversations, and oftentimes when they find me, they have said, you know, the device rep that sold me this device said that I was going to get marketing, or they said that, you know, just buy it and they will come. And the reality is it doesn't work that way. You can't just buy it and they will come. And on top of that, I really haven't seen a device company out there that really has a turnkey marketing offer that is included with device purchase, right? It's not as simple as putting up some stock images on your Facebook page. It's not that simple, guys.
It's kind of a necessary thing that's not front and center in their focus when they're selling these devices. It's like, oh, people want marketing support, so we'll put together this marketing package, and it's got brochures, and it's got camera-ready artwork, and it's got, you know, some videos and things like that. But it's nothing compared to what you would do for somebody, because you're separate from that. You see the industry from a different angle. You know the bigger picture. That's your focus, where that's a small focus for the laser company. Their deal is moving devices.
Yeah.
They want to sell them, and they may make a big deal out of the market. We have this absolutely fantastic marketing package, when in reality, it may not be that much.
Right. It's the tipping point. It really is. And it's better than nothing. But what I feel like a lot of practices don't understand is you still got to execute it, right? You're going to get the brochure, or the stock images, or a press release, right? But you still got to do the work. It's never as simple as set it and forget it. And so you got to keep that in mind, and you got to have a detailed plan, what your pre-launch, what your launch, your post-launch. Are you doing an event, a virtual event, an in-person? Like, there's so much to it that people are missing $100,000, $200,000 on a device.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, so the companies will give you just enough. But if you want to be really successful and maximize what you can do with these devices and your income and all that, you really need somebody like yourself who can really take them to the next level. Because the laser companies, there's a saying in the industry, the quickest way to get rid of a laser sales rep is to buy something from them, because they're getting pressure to move on to the next one pretty quick. So, okay, here's your laser, here's your marketing kit. Dude, see ya. You know, call me if you have any issues, or don't call me if you have any issues. So yeah, they really need to have somebody else take that ball and help them run with it.
Absolutely. Well, Don, thank you so much for your time today. And you have a special offer, right? Anyone that has listened to the end, if you are considering now or even in the near future, then I strongly encourage you to give Don Berryhill. You can find him at lasercoach.com. You can find him on Facebook and in LinkedIn. And what do you have? What kind of offer do you have for anyone that watched our video today?
And also YouTube. So there's a Laser Coach YouTube channel where I've created a lot of videos interviewing owners of different devices, me giving tips, things like that. So, and I also have assembled several seasoned professionals in this industry to help out in different ways. So if I don't know it, what the answer is, I can refer you to somebody who can help you, because there's some of the stuff is pretty confusing. But anyway, yeah, so anybody that wants to call me, there's no charge for an initial discussion. Let's check around some ideas. Let's see where you are. Let's see what you need. Let me help you with some options. If I can't help you, I will. Like I said, if I can, I'll send you to somebody who can. But I think you need to really, it's worth talking to somebody who's been in the industry for a while to really understand your options, because like we talked about earlier, there's so many times I've talked to someone who bought something and they went, wow, I wish I'd have known this before I bought it. Why didn't I? Because you get the laser companies and reps know how to get you excited and buy before you may be ready.
Yeah.
And then once you buy it, you got it. And if it's not the right fit for you, or your staff doesn't like it, it's not easy to use, it's not as effective as you thought it was, it's whatever it may be, you're stuck. So you need to really understand if it's
yeah, you're so stuck. That's I literally have heard that quote from numerous clients. I'm stuck with this device. I'm stuck with this lease payment.
And then if they haven't been smart about their purchase, when they find they're stuck with something that's not a good fit, and then I'll just sell it on the used market. Like I said, they may get 20% of what they bought for it, like in a few months, not in all cases. It could be 50%, it could be, whatever it is, but they depreciate greatly. And again, it depends on the demand. So if that technology's moved on and nobody's asking for it, you're not going to get much. And then there's and this is something I can talk about at some point. There's a real trick to working with used dealers and brokers, because it's been traditionally kind of the Wild West with how these individuals and companies operate. And sometimes it's a great deal and sometimes it's a horrible deal. So you need to know how to work with them. And so I work with a couple of groups, and the advantage of having me in the mix, if you're buying used, is I'm kind of your insurance policy, because I know what questions to ask. I can hold their feet to the fire. If they say, I'm going to sell you this and it's got so many pulses on it and it's got this and that, and it shows up and it's different, I know how to make them honor their agreement, and to know that what they're going to ship you is what you think you're getting. So it's really nice to have somebody in the middle if you're buying used, because a lot of these things you just won't think to ask them.
Yeah, I mean, you really said it best when you said you don't know what you don't know until it's too late when it comes to buying a new or a used laser device. So guys, I really encourage you to take Don up on this generous offer of giving you a free consultation. And when I was hearing what his rates were, it was like pennies on the dollar compared to what he could be saving you financially and time and heartache in the end. So make sure that you check out Don Berryhill, lasercoach.com, and you can find him on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Thanks so much, Don.